Okay, we now welcome on longtime friend of the pod, recurring guest, one of our favorites. He is not here to talk about Weezer. He is Nick Parco. He had a secret meeting in his brain and he decided to come on GA to do a roadmap for the National. And this will be one of the more roadmaps we've ever done because it is the first band that Brett and I come into on this, not really knowing anything at all. So he's got his work cut out for him. Nick, welcome back. It's good to see you. How you
It's
doing?
good to see you guys too. Thanks for having me back.
It's a good day anytime you're on the podcast. I'm sorry we're not talking about Weezer. I know it's breaking your
I'm,
heart.
I'm not.
I left my elf ears at my house.
You left it with the Shire.
Yeah.
Isn't it like the 1 year anniversary of the first EP, the spring EP?
Yeah, because that coincides with this podcast since it pretty much started the same week or so. But yes, I digress. We're not here to talk about Rivers. We're here to talk about the National. Nick, how long have you been listening to this band? How much do you like this band? What's kind of your relationship with them before we get into our side?
I would say I've liked them. Brett knows this about me because I've known Brett for a really long time, like 20 years at this point. I get into bands late. I always have. I don't know what it is. I just do. Not for any particular reason. But I got into them right after I graduated college. So about 2012, 2013. While they at that point they were already like super established and like indie rock darlings. Um it was literally just like the Spotify algorithm caught me and I heard one of their songs and I liked it. So I kept listening to them. Then nothing more romantic than that. It was literally like I'm listening to Spotify. Probably, if I remember what I was listening to at that time, it was probably like Arcade Fire or a band like an indie rock staple like that.
Gaslight, maybe?
Spotify. What's that?
Gaslight, maybe? I know like we'll kind of talk about that as we go, but I feel like there's some Brian Fallon here that could have led to that.
What would 2012 be? Would that be like handwritten or American
Handwritten.
slang? Yeah, that's
But
likely. That's
yeah.
likely. But yeah, so no cool story about me seeing them in a basement or like being on a forum. Like, no, it was just Spotify was like, you'll probably like this. And yeah, they were right. The first song I heard from them, which makes sense because it is their probably their most famous song, was Fake Empire off a Boxer. Since then, they're probably my most listened to band, and they're probably my favorite band of the past 12 years of my life. So we're definitely going to have a much different conversation than the ones we've had about Weezer.
Wow. So you picked them up quick and you stuck with them. What is it about them? I mean, sure we're gonna get to this throughout the whole thing, but like if you were to do like an elevator pitch, like what drew you to this band that made you like them so much?
um, it's weird, and other national fans will tell you this, especially ones that, and I'm by no means a master musician, but they have a really, really good drummer, and their drums are always really unorthodox. That's what grabbed me first when I started to dive deep. I would say, in addition to Matt Berninger's voice, who has that classic like indie rock baritone, kind of like the guy from Interpol, Paul Banks, like that deep, almost talky, but he is singing kind of voice. Those are the two things that drew me right away to them. Um, on top of that, Aaron and Bryce Desner are both really, really great guitarists and just song composers in general. And you add it all together, and it's like the perfect mix for me.
Yeah. That that was what drew me to them from in the past, week of listening leading up to this is they incorporate like a ton of instruments, which is probably what I like best about them.
Especially on the earlier stuff, they do.
Yeah, on I guess Alligator is probably what I became the most familiar with. And then I listened through the playlist you sent us, which we're gonna get to. but
They've kind of since Alligator. I'm not comparing them to Radiohead because they're not Radiohead. Nobody's Radiohead, but you could tell chronologically, which is kind of how I'm going to lay this map out. Is chronologically, mostly since you guys aren't that familiar with them. I think it makes the most sense. But they kind of go with the times. Like you could hear them embracing, not like technology, like okay, computer level shit, but like you could hear them changing as a band as the years go on. Like Alligator does not sound like what the National currently sounds like.
interesting. I found a new background for anyone watching on YouTube.
At the
So
Looks
Gorge.
like I think it's the Gorge. Looks like the Gorge.
It's definitely not Red Rocks. Yeah, it is.
Brett, how was your week listening to the National or few days?
So I'd say it was pretty good. Like there's definitely some songs that got their claws in me so far. Like the more I listen to it, the more I seem to like get attached to certain songs, which we'll get into as we go through this list. But I did text Parco ahead of time a little bit, and you, Nick, at the same time, the same thing about one of their later albums, asking if I'm supposed to be kind of driven to that one the most compared to what we've listened to so far. But it doesn't really sound like there is a right or wrong answer there. But I know we'll get to that album later on the list. But I don't know. There's so much going on with this band that I like, and it's like very unique compared to what I usually listen to. I feel like
They're definitely a band that I have pushed at you for years at this
you
point.
have.
So I'm glad that you're being forced now to listen to them in my presence, nonetheless.
The great
And
thing.
well, I guess we can probably get into it soon, but I do have very strong thoughts about the first track.
Let me
we
get
can-
the playlist. Okay. All right.
And spoiler, I think you pick like the perfect intro song for someone trying to get into them. Sorry if I jumped ahead. I couldn't help
And
myself.
it's funny because I guess I'll get into a little bit of the history. So since you guys aren't absolute like psycho nerds for this band like I am, just some basic info is they got together in Brooklyn, but most of them are from Ohio, which they talk about Ohio in a couple of their songs. The band is Matt Berninger on vocals, and then the rest of the band is two pairs of brothers, which I've always found interesting. Twin brothers, Aaron and Bryce Dessner. Aaron Dessner, who you might have heard is Taylor Swift's latest producer. He produced Folklore and Evermore. And the other two brothers are the rhythm section. The bass and drums are Scott and Brian Devendorf. Like halfway through the life of the band, Matt Berninger's wife started writing with him. So you do hear like the lyrics, I think, do get better once she joins the band, which we'll talk about when we get to that point in history. But yeah, it's two pairs of brothers, and then the singer is the makeup of the band.
That's really cool. I love that two brothers are drum and bass because they got to be locked in. So they're probably extra locked in.
Yeah, and the twins both play guitar / keyboard, but they're basically like, as you guys have probably discovered in your brief listening, like I wouldn't even say it's rhythm and lead. They kind of like alternate lead at the same time almost. It's I wouldn't call either of them a rhythm guitarist.
Interesting.
And I feel like we'll get to it, but I feel like they really got to shine like as the band went on. Like I feel like the 20 I can just say the album name. It's Sleep Well Beast, I feel like was like at least based on the two tracks you picked out, like I feel like those are the most guitar driven tracks. So I feel like I don't know if it was like a choice to go in the direction of a guitar driven album later on. I know I'm
I
skipping
would
ahead
say
again.
those happen to be on the roadmap, two of like the more riff based songs out of all of them, because usually, like I was saying, usually it's a lot of bass and drums, and then Matt Berninger's vocals, and then the guitars appear at some point. Those are two
They're
songs.
usually subtle.
Yeah,
Yeah. They're not like the center focal point. It felt like a lot. Like
yeah,
they'd have
and
like a cool, did they finger pick at all? Because some of them sounded like they were kind
for
of,
sure. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I've seen them a bunch of times. They're not always using guitar picks.
That's cool. Yeah, because it's like repetitive, almost like a dream state, the guitar, and then like there's a bunch of other cool shit going on, like cello and violins, and yeah.
Yeah, the early stuff, they going back to Arcade Fire, that they never had like 30 people on stage with them the way Arcade Fire used to tour back in the day. but they were way more than just like a 4-piece indie rock band on the first 2 albums at least. Getting into the roadmap, I chose to disregard the self-titled, their first album. One, I don't think it's that good, and two, like the band actively like never talks about it and never touches any of those songs from their first
Wow.
album. So I literally wrote down, for our purposes, let's pretend this doesn't exist, just like the band, because the band really never touches any of these songs.
That's funny. I put that on last week. It's like, let me start with at the beginning, and it's self-titled. And it's like, oh man, like this is kind of boring. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this. And then everything else you sent, I liked a lot. But the first
Good.
album didn't really hit for me. But it sounds
Well,
like it didn't hit for
one
them either.
disclaimer
Yeah.
before we dive into this, which I guess I can get into as I get more into the history of the band as the albums are released, is they are a part of a quote unquote scene, like the New York City early 2000s rock scene. Which is why I feel like it's better to start with the second and third albums, which you could tell they sound like Interpol and the Yeah Yeah Yeahs and TV on the Radio and all those like early 2000 Brooklyn bands that were on MTV MTV2 nonstop and really blew up. Do you guys like that scene generally, like the meet me in the bathroom scene?
I was gonna ask if they were in that book, but like I like the Strokes from there.
Like briefly,
Yeah.
they're mentioned.
Mostly the Strokes. So like yeah, yes. I feel like we like Nick when we talked about that last year. I feel like we liked that new album that came out, but I didn't really go back and explore their older stuff. Like I
Yeah,
always got annoyed
same.
when Maps would come on MTV and would change the channel, so I never really gave it a chance. But I feel like now I'd probably like it.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much in the same boat, Brett. I think is kind of like the Strokes come to mind the most. I think Fish has covered TV on the radio, if I'm not mistaken. So like it's kind of cool. Shout out to them. Maybe I would like them. I don't know. That doesn't always mean I'd like a band, but
They sound nothing like Fish, so I'm gonna guess.
I'm serious. I really think they covered them though. But
No, I'm sure they
yeah.
cover them, but in
Oh
general,
yeah,
I
yeah.
wouldn't base your opinion of TV on the radio off of Fish covering them.
Yeah.
So do you guys? I know this is like the fourth time I mentioned them. Do you guys like Interpol?
Like I don't know them that well either. Like I've listened to what's the album with the red on the cover?
Turn on the bright lights.
Turn the Bright Lights. I've listened to that like once or twice, but then have back to it. So
All
it's
right,
if I were to listen
this
to
is
it
gonna be
now, it'd be like
interesting
listen to
because
it brand new.
I would say they are associated most out of every band from the scene they came from with Interpol. They shared a producer at some point and they shared the same rehearsal space.
Their
I don't
singers sound the same, kind of, right?
yeah. The bass isn't as good in the National as it is in Interpol. But as two people who I know you're coming in kind of bright-eyed and not knowing that much, I was hoping you'd be familiar with Interpol because it would be a little bit. I feel like it would be an easier sell, but I'm here to sell them anyway.
You'd probably need to be sold on Interpol too at this rate.
It's good we started a podcast, Brett, when we have the exact same music taste. It
I know,
really
right?
helps us get variety in on this thing. That's why Parco's
There's some
here.
differences.
Yeah, yeah. You lean.
Yeah, every other roadmap I've listened to, the most recent one I listened to that you guys did was Silverstein, a band that I'm not that familiar with. But when I was listening, I was like, oh, they know a lot about Silverstein. Like, I wonder if they know this much about the National. But it like
Right?
deep down, I
Nope.
was like, no, me and Brett would have talked about the National for years if I knew he
Yeah.
liked it.
Like I feel like if you listen to the Bayside one, like that one, we were pretty much spectators. Like we didn't really know much about the band. We knew like some songs, but we didn't know backstory or
Yeah.
many albums, I'd
Yeah,
say.
I chose Silverstein because I don't like Bayside.
You don't like great guitar riffs? That's a shame.
I've accidentally
kidding.
seen Bayside more than I've accidentally seen
Dude.
any of in my life.
Dude, I'm with you on that. It's probably because of all the Taking Back Sunday shows.
Yep.
Yeah.
At
Yeah.
Brand New, Dave Hawes, I've seen them. Yeah, I've seen
Yeah.
them open for a ton of people.
Yeah. I think Bayside and Five Finger Death Punch are the bands I've unintentionally seen the most. Anytime I
it's
went to
I've
like
seen
that
them.
like disturbed world, it was just always Five Finger Death Punch. I'm like, please stop making me
I
listen to this
saw
music.
Bayside open for Gaslight Anthem at least like 4 times, like at Gaslight's height.
They're just like friends with everyone in that scene. Yeah, because they're playing on the Bouncing Souls
Stoked for
show
summer.
too. Yeah.
And now I live like 20 minutes from Bayside.
Wow.
Still don't like them though.
All right, the National. Where are we starting?
All right, we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna completely bypass 2001's self-titled to jump into Sad Songs for Dirty Lovers. The song is available. I believe it's the first song on the album. So in my head, I like to picture it as the introduction to the band because everyone forgets about the first album. You get a taste of something that, as you're going to see in these early songs, has a lot of Matt Berninger growling and yelling, but like a melodic yelling, basically. And this is not screamo. This is just like straight up indie rock. But as the years go on, they kind of shy away from that. Like their current stuff, Matt Berninger does not sing like that. So knowing both of your tastes and that you do like emo and screamo and all that kind of stuff, I figured we started out with one of their earlier loud songs.
Yeah, you hit us with this one. I'm like, all right, I'm in after like track one.
Yeah,
I thought it was
no.
like the Strokes minus like the guitars, like his like the way he sang was like very similar like the Strokes at that time. Like I know obviously his voice changes on like the next two. Well, not changes, but like the way he delivers the lyrics, I would say. Is that accurate?
He definitely hasn't found himself vocally on
Okay.
Sad Security Lovers.
All right, we'll pause it up and we'll listen for a little bit and then we'll resume. Let's do it.
Okay.
That was really enjoyable. I loved the guitars and the yelling, so you nailed it.
And the gentle outro. Kind of come back down.
Yeah. I thought it would be after looking at. There's a handful of songs that I do like on this. I would say my obsession and most National fans' obsession begins with the next album through basically present day. So, Sad Songs for Dirty Lovers. It's not like a unskippable album. Like I pick and choose when I listen to this album. But knowing you guys and what we've talked about, I felt like this would be the one to kind of get you on board early before we start making left and right turns because not everything in there sounds like this.
So
What are like their
something
live staples off this? Like
Are
before
there
we move on
live
to the next
staples
album.
off this? I've never seen them play. I've seen them 5 times, and they've maybe played available. That would be that or Murder Me Rachel would be the only 2 songs they probably touch present day from this album.
Is that a
What's-
Friends reference?
Yes, it definitely is.
It's written
It
from
has to
Ross.
be.
It's written from Ross's perspective. Yeah.
It's a concept album based on the 90s sitcom Friends. Nailed it. 90s? Yeah, 90s.
Yeah.
So what's with the Hello, My Name is Paul thing? Because that's on every song. Not not even one album. Every single song on Spotify has I can't even show it because it's like
Does he have a
No,
background now?
I know what you're talking about. It's
uh,
so they have a new album coming out in 2 weeks or a week. And the album's called First Two Pages of Frankenstein. Don't ask me about it. I have no idea the reasoning behind that ridiculous album name. But when the first time they teased it with that photo. And since now put it as a background for every single song in their catalog on Spotify. But back to available just before
Yeah.
we jump ahead. I chose it because the yelling at the end, it to me is the best part of the song, like that last minute and a half of the song. And it's something that becomes a staple of the Nationals, to me, better songs, is that they make you wait almost as long as possible for the chorus. It's something they do. They really perfect it in 2013 with Trouble Will Find Me. But you hear it here, you hear it more on Alligator. They kind of go away from it for Boxer. But everything since Boxer is they get in this groove, and I blame the Desner brothers for being just really, really great song composers. Like they literally compose Broadway stuff sometimes. That's how like their music theory like savants. Um, but this is a first taste of like the song's good, it's growing, and they make you wait for it, and then they kind of unleash it. And I feel like this is the best early example of that in their catalog.
So they're like an indie Tool, like minus the 13-minute songs. There's all about the build,
That's
the build
probably
and release.
is that what you've called me in your head for the year trying to get national as indie Tool?
I'm probably gonna piss off so many people by asking you that.
Nick, you know who else likes to tease choruses?
The Bayside, Weezer.
Weezer. Yeah. The yelling in this gave me Isaac Brock vibes from Modest Mouse.
Ooh,
And I get that in a
yeah.
lot of the yelling. Like where is it? I think it's called Abel on Alligator when he's like yelling, "My mind's not right." I actually thought
Could have
that
picked
was
Abel.
Isaac Brock for like a minute. I had to check Genius to like see if he was featured because that
I would
yelling.
say, yeah, the Matt Berninger yelling is in line with. I wouldn't even say that like Isaac Brock freaking out is how I describe it, because I wouldn't even say what Isaac Brock does is yelling. But
Yeah, it's
yeah,
a good
that's
call.
a really solid comparison that I haven't mentioned yet. I'm kind of stuck on the Interpol thing and the Julian Casablancas thing, but Isaac is
And the
definitely
Tool thing.
yeah. It sounds like Maynard James Keenan, yeah. But yeah, Isaac Brock is a very good comparison. They're just the Nationals not nearly as wordy as Modest Mouse, but they have similarities. I mean, I think they're two of the more endearing indie bands from this time era in present day.
I can see that. Brett's just trying to see how fast he can get you to hang up this call. I think is his goal.
When we talk about Modest Mouse, I'll be here all night because they're another one of my very favorite bands.
Yeah,
Ours too, I think.
they're a band I feel like no matter how much I listen, I never know enough about. Like they just have so much to them,
And then
which is
seeing them
kind of
live, they have
nice.
pull out such random things live too.
All
Yeah.
those B-sides they have,
Yeah.
like those random compilation albums they have.
Yeah. Wait, Nick, you went to the Lonesome Crowded West tour, right?
I did
Okay.
because
Yeah,
the National is my favorite band, and my wife's favorite band is Modest Mouse. So when that
okay.
happened, she was like, "We have to go to this,"
Yeah.
even though it's at Terminal 5 we went.
No one likes Terminal 5.
Like one of the worst venues
In
around
there,
here.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't It's been a while, but I just remember like a big room with a few extra levels.
and like a single file exit for 1,500 people.
I guess I forgot about that part.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
All right. So where are we going next?
All right, let me pull up this roadmap. Okay, so I don't want to pick just for the people at home. I made a 15 song roadmap, and I don't expect people, including Nick and Brett, to listen to all 15 of these right now.
I did.
But so I have some options here on left and right turns and yield signs and other road metaphors we could make. I would say let's listen to, but we're gonna go to Alligator, which is the next album. I would say let's listen to Mr. November next.
All right. We just got carried in the arms of cheerleaders. We're back.
So yeah, that was Mr. November, which is about Brett's favorite shortstop of all time, Derek Jeter of the New York Yankees.
Not John Kerry.
No,
Or is that like a fake Wikipedia fact?
No, unfortunately, you're right. It's not about my favorite shortstop of all time, even though I know you're a Mets fan, which is why I had to make that dig. Yes, it is about John Kerry and what is that, the 04 presidential election?
I think so. Yeah.
Hence the Great White Hope repeating part of it. And it is not the first time that the National is going to dive into politics. When we get to Boxer, there's I'll save the actual political talk for Boxer. But yes, this was partially about John Kerry, partially just about like the Bush administration and all that fun stuff that probably don't want to dive into on a music podcast.
Nah, we
But
don't.
I chose this one because of the other songs that I had listed. And by the way, Alligators, I go back and forth. Alligator might be my favorite album of theirs. I go back and forth between Alligator and Boxer, but I chose this because you guys like the yelling so much, and I would say this is probably the best yelling y'all find on any release of theirs. Towards the end of this, the I won't fuck us over, I miss you.
Yeah. The energy was awesome. And I noticed the drums. I didn't like pay attention a whole lot to the drums my first way through, and I'm kind of upset I didn't. But at the end, they were doing like this like drum roll thing, and then it'd fade out and come back, and it was definitely really cool.
I've always been drawn to the drumming because he doesn't use cymbals. Like listen for in this song he does, but for the rest of these songs, pay attention. Like you picture a guy drumming behind a drum kit and his hands crossed and using the hi-hat. That's just not how they operate as a band, which I think is nuts. And the fact that they pull that off
That's fascinating.
yeah, it's fascinating. I agree. But I chose this because I knew you guys would appreciate the yelling. Also just like there's some finger picking going on, like Nick hinted at earlier in the verses. And it's just the energy in this one. This is a real fan favorite. They play this at probably not every single concert, but this is a live staple of sorts. And I knew you guys would like the energy.
This would fit like well in like a best of playlist of like final tracks. I feel like this is such a great song like end the album on.
They're pretty good at openers and closers, at picking both like bookends, so to speak.
It
Now, go ahead.
it seems like they're very like careful with like their instrumentation. Like nothing, no one instrument seems like it's like dominating any part of the song, but they're all kind of like fitting together nicely and creating this like big soundscape without any
Yeah,
one thing doing it. It's really
and
cool.
I think we chalk that up to Aaron and Bryce Desner being like I think they I don't know what colleges they went to, but like they're music majors. Like they might have went to Berkeley. Like they just know how to compose and build songs from a music perspective. The way this band operates is they'll make a song music wise and they'll show it to Matt Berninger, who will then write around it. So it as much as I say it's a 5-piece, like the music itself begins with the Desner brothers. And before we leave Alligator, just to catch you guys up on what's going on with the band at this point. So the first two albums don't really move the needle much in America. But like most great American bands, people in Europe start listening to the National. Like they're getting a little bit of coverage in like Pitchfork and other hoity-toity like early 2000s magazines. But with Alligator, they actually like move the needle and people in America start knowing who they are. And that's partially because of how great of an album it is, but also partially because other bands in New York are like absolutely blowing up worldwide at this point, like the Strokes. So around Alligator, they tour with a band called Clap Your Hands, Say Yeah. Have either of you heard of that band?
I don't think so.
No.
So they're a similar sounding indie band. Off the top of my head, I think they're from the Midwest. I don't know where they're from, but they have one really popular song called "The Skin of My Yellow Country Teeth," and the National books "Clap Your Hands, Say Yeah" to open for them on the Alligator tour. And that "Clap Your Hands, Say Yeah" song gets really, really big, bigger than any National song. And it gets to the point where in the middle of this tour for Alligator, people are leaving after Clap Your Hands, Say Yeah go on. So the National, despite getting a lot of praise for this album on like smaller indie blogs, not like huge websites, they kind of enter Boxer on a crossroad because they just experienced like what every band would never want to experience, where your opener is way more successful than you are at this point. It's funny because no one knows who that band is now, and the National is like the preeminent American indie rock band, I would argue. Granted, I'm biased because I love them, but there's not many bigger indie rock bands right now in 2023 than the National. They've been doing it for 20 some odd years. But at this point, heading into Boxer, it's like the story Springsteen tells, where he's like he was obsessing over Born to Run because he knew it was that, or he was gonna basically have to stop making music. And the National was at a similar crossroads after Alligator because they had all just quit their day jobs because they finally got a record deal. But then they get usurped by their opener and they enter the studio being like, well, we're never doing that again. So we're either going to make it with this next album or we're going to stop doing this. Which is what makes Boxer such a special album. From the band's perspective, they all say it's what changed everything. And as a fan who knows their discography really well, it's the one that pulled me in was a song from Boxer. And it's still my favorite release of theirs. And I would say it's most like 85% of National diehards would probably say this is their favorite album, Boxer.
So prior to Boxer, they were more international than the National.
They were I actually read this great book on Boxer. Are you guys familiar with the 33 and the Third book series?
I've heard they're very good, but I haven't read one yet. I know there's like a ton of them out there.
Right. How long were you waiting to make that joke?
A long time.
Yeah. All right.
The second I heard they were bigger overseas.
So 33 and a half is this book series where writers just like dive in and basically get the oral history of an album. I'm pretty sure there's an Elliott Smith one. The only one
Couple Bowie ones.
Hmm?
There's like a couple like Bowie ones, I think.
Yeah, but it's for like it's for bands that people know, but not like they're not doing like a 33 and a third on like Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
And they did one on that I think it came out early last year on Boxer, and I read it, and that's where I pulled most of that information I just told you from. So I just wanted to cite that properly.
Oh, it's really
Those
cool.
like they're like not that long either, right? Aren't they like 100 pages?
I'm gonna be a nerd. I have the Boxer one right in front of me.
There you go.
Oh, nice.
And it is yeah, I read it on a flight actually, most of it. It's 170 pages.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. I never
It
heard of
does
that.
it does a really, really good job of setting the stage post Alligator of kind of where they're at as a band. And kind of how unhappy they were going into the recording of Boxer. And to kind of make matters worse, they enter Boxer at this point, like all the New York bands around them are really rich, really successful. The Strokes are playing Madison Square Garden, things like that. They actually, right before Boxer, leading up into hitting the studio to make Boxer, which is recorded in upstate New York. They're actually sharing, or they're not sharing, but they're in the same building as Interpol, in the same rehearsal space. And like every day they're seeing like Spin Magazine and all these other huge magazines go and interview Interpol and take photos of Interpol for magazine covers while they're trying to hash out songs for Boxer going into the studio.
Wow.
So just like as an and that's
Yeah.
after the Alligator tour, where the band that opened for them wound up being a bigger sell than them.
So they have a chip on their
There's a
shoulder.
lot of
at this
shit
point.
going on heading into Boxer.
They got something to prove.
Yeah, which is, and they get into this in the book, which is why it's called Boxer. Because you know
Like getting in the ring, kind of.
Yep, and you know, getting kicked when you're down and not giving up, and it's that's aged really well as an album. Probably better than first two pages of Frankenstein is gonna age.
So you
I
have
haven't listened to those singles yet, so I have no idea what the new music sounds like. But I know we'll get to that at the end. But
We're gonna have to hit, there's a stop sign on the roadmap right now. We're gonna have to pause that while we handle Boxer.
all right. So you have 3 songs from Boxer on the playlist. Which one are you leaning towards right now?
I'm gonna say, because it's their most famous song and it's the next one that has serious political ties, we should start with Fake Empire. And I'd say it's also one that people probably may have heard offhand and don't know it's the National.
All right, let's do it.
Drums.
A lot of instruments. That's why I've been liking this band. The horns at the end were very nice.
The horns are great. The intro piano is really, really pulls you in. Which is at this point in their career, like a first almost, I would say. They're not very piano heavy, and piano is not the major part of really any section of their songs, not until you get in later into the 2010s. But what did you guys think? Did you like Fake Empire?
That was like another one that like what's another great example of the build. Like it starts at the
Yeah.
piano and then it ends in a place where you're not expecting. Like I felt like the drums kind of reminded me of like Sunday, Bloody Sunday. A little bit like the way that it's played. Is that fair? Like with the
Without the
beat
cymbals,
kinda,
yeah.
but minus the cymbals. Yeah.
Yeah. No, yes, I hear that comparison.
I think their songs definitely like reward you for sticking around because it's not like I wasn't enjoying the beginning, but the piano and the vocals are really it. And then you're like, all right, this is fine if this is the song. And then it just gradually builds and gradually builds until you don't even know that you're in like a much like higher place song wise, which is pretty cool.
Definitely a slow burn. Another great opener of theirs. I think it's a hell of a way to open an album. Which I'm like, let me double check. It does open. Yeah, it opens Boxer. I personally love the piano part because Nick, I know you play guitar. I feel like it has the rhythm almost of a finger picking pattern. This opening piano melody.
Yeah, I can see that. It's like three or four notes just kind of repeating. It's just carrying the song.
Yeah, yeah. This is another live staple. This is one they play, I would say, almost every night. And I'm glad. I feel like we're on a good road here because this is for sure a little bit more mellow, which is not a word I'd use to describe most of their songs. But I would say it's a little bit more mellow than the other songs I've showed you so far. There's no screaming or huge release in this song the way there is in the earlier ones. So that makes me happy that you guys like this one because it is different than the other stuff I've showed you so far.
And then what's the political story surrounding this one? I know you mentioned it was a really good one.
So Fake Empire was featured in one of Barack Obama's political campaign ads. Basically the one that is the video ad that is most connected to the famous Barack Obama like change and hope poster that I'm sure you guys remember from when we were in high school or whenever Barack Obama was president. But so, and that was not even intentional. It was like someone in his campaign either knew or was friends with the band, but the band did not push to be included in this, despite writing about another Democrat on
About
Alex
John Kerry.
John Kerry. Yeah, but so this finds its way into that ad. And I guess Barack Obama and his people liked it a lot, people in his camp, because on election night, like an hour after the votes are called and he has enough electoral votes to become president, that famous scene of Barack Obama and Michelle Obama and their two daughters giving that speech at Grant Park in Chicago, they walked out on stage to Fake Empire in front of like
Whoa.
250,000 people in that park in Chicago.
I did not know that.
It is tied to like a very iconic moment in American
Wow.
history, or at least modern political history.
Suck it, clap your hands.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
seriously.
what I'm saying. Exactly. Like they waited long enough, and like that was a huge moment for them. It's talked about in that 33 and a third book at length on how much of a game changer that was, like the amount of famous musicians who witnessed that and then like reached out to the National and friends, and it just was a real pick me up for them at that point. And after that, like the album charted better. Like it really was a game changer.
It was a knockout.
It was a haymaker, yeah.
Wow. And that's 2007-ish. So like, are people still buying songs on iTunes at that point? Because that song probably got bought a lot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think of that in today's stream.
You could still make money off a single song at that point in time.
But yeah,
Back in
isn't
the
that an
day.
insane story on them writing about a Democratic loser earlier in their career, and then not writing about him, but this kind of became the song in a way. Not that I was super into politics when I was 17 or however old I was when this came out, but this kind of becomes like this song is attached to the Obama campaign, in his first election.
I did hear there's a shirt floating around out there. It says Mr. November with Obama's face on it.
I should own
That's
that
a
shirt,
reference to the
but,
band.
I,
I read that when
I'm
reading about
unaware of that, but that's pretty
Okay.
great. That's true. Um, I do know that their newest merch thing, which has become kind of a nickname for the band in general, is Sad Dads. They have a lot of merch that just says Sad Dads on it.
That's a
I
good
get a
one.
shirt or a mug that says that.
I have enough national merch, but
Yeah.
say,
How new is that shirt? You know what tour it's from?
I think this is
Or was it an internet purchase?
it was an internet purchase because
That's when you really love a band.
I'm gonna get real nerdy here. I'm part of their fan club.
You got to be on the mailing list if you want
The
tickets.
only
Yeah.
no, like I pay annually to be part of the Nationals fan club. It's called Cherry Tree, which is an
Oh,
EP we skipped over.
yeah,
We
I
can
was gonna
go
say
back to
that's
that.
on here.
We can go
About
back
today.
to that at the end, which would be fitting because about today is some they do sometimes close with it. But yeah, this is from the fan club.
Nice.
Only band that I pay to be a part of the fan club for is the National.
That's cool.
Mostly because it makes it a lot easier to get tickets to see them live.
Yeah. And if you're that big a fan, you want to support them. Like, it's really no different than
What better
buying a
way?
couple shirts. Although you're
I
also
I
buying
would
the shirts.
pay a lot of money to a lot of my favorite bands like the National because you kind of get to bypass Ticketmaster.
Just
So
like very much worth it at this point.
that's money well spent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just heard, I don't want to get too off topic, but I think it's Brandy Carlisle for the first day of the store she just announced. The first day tickets go on sale is box office only. And then the next day it goes to Ticketmaster. It's kind of
I
cool.
love that. We should
Yeah.
not
That's
that
great.
us three ever really experienced that. We're not old enough.
I was gonna say it doesn't really help where I live. There's no like venues that I could run over to the box office at lunch, but I still like the idea.
Back in the day, like in the 80s and the 70s and the 60s, you could there were Ticketmaster. I don't know if it was Ticketmaster, but you could like go to brick and mortars like in a mall, like a music store, but have
Oh
tickets.
yeah. I remember the mall.
That is awesome. I think we should go back to that.
I think
That
that
was
was
cool.
temporarily in our time too. Like maybe real early 90s. I feel like there was a spot in the mall you could get tickets for things.
Early 90s for sure. For most of we're all around 30-ish, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the thing though, like having to go to a box office or go to a Ticketmaster outlet or go to a
Yeah.
mall where there was like an FYE or something.
Fun little story. So when I was 17, I actually went to a record store in the Highlands and bought Motley Crue tickets there. They had like a Ticketmaster like connection through the store. So it was, I guess it was still around when we were in high school too.
Is there a record store in the Highlands that I don't know of?
I think it's like a music lesson place, but they also sold tickets, but they also sold some records, but it wasn't like a record store.
So I say the only one I know near in around where you guys are in Monmouth County is Jackson Red Bank, which I love.
And nothing tops Jack's.
No, that's a great one. Record store day is next Saturday. Or a week from this Saturday, the 22nd. So I'm wrong. It's like 3 weeks, but
2 weeks away.
anyway, Boxer.
Yeah, this I knew I had to play Fake Empire because it's just like their most iconic song for the story I just told, and it's a fan favorite, and for a million other reasons. Elsewhere on the album, we do have two other options here. Fake Empire sticks out because it is the more piano driven, quieter song on this album. There's a couple of other quieter ones that are more guitar driven. But I would say next up, moving on from Fake Empire, we should listen to Apartment Story, which but I'm gonna keep saying might be my favorite song, might be my favorite album, because I have a lot of trouble picking when it comes to the National. But Apartment Story very, very, very much might be my favorite song of theirs. So I would say let's go there next.
All right, let's do it. No symbols. I didn't hear any symbols.
Nope.
But when it picks up, there's symbols,
Okay.
which is a trend going on. But
Yeah.
I love this song, and we've been harping on how good they are musically. I love the lyrics in this one. I mean, I love the lyrics in all of the songs that I put on this roadmap. But this whole painting a picture of not like agoraphobia, but like this couple arguing, being in love, and just wanting to stay inside during the winter until it gets nice outside. Like I love the picture it paints. I love the stay inside our rosy minded fuzz. Like he's just got a really good way with words. That coupled with the build up and the entering of the symbols. This is one of like the more story driven songs of theirs, and we're not going to listen to it because I didn't put it on the roadmap. But if you like this song, I would really recommend the song before it on the album is called Slow Show. I feel like they're almost like siblings. Slow Show and Apartment Story, they go right into one another on the track listing, but it's also like a similar story about, like, you feel like it's about the same couple. Slow Show is a little bit more acoustic driven, but I almost always listen to those two like as a tandem, and they're also kind of played live as a tandem a lot. If they play one, they're probably playing the other.
What I'm
What
liking about them so far is that the instrumentals are great. There's no question there. And that's enough for me to like be interested in a band. And then if
Me
you have
too.
that extra layer of, oh, the next time I listen to this, I'm going to pay attention to the lyrics. And those are also good. It just gives you a reason to come back. And that's what I was wondering if I would find with throughout this roadmap. And I feel like I'm finding it because the instruments alone can carry the song. And the fact that you put good lyrics on top is just icing on the cake.
I think that's one of the game changers with Boxer. As much as I love Alligator, I feel like the writing is like notably a step up on Boxer, and for the first time, it's more personal.
Is his
Um,
wife writing at this point or not yet? I remember you mentioned that at the beginning.
believe she begins writing. Yeah, she starts writing on this album, and she's credited on some of these songs. But this is the album where she starts writing with, or Matt Berninger starts going to her basically for opinions. His wife Corinne, I'm pretty sure before the National hit it really big, and she joined as a pseudo member. She was like a writer or editor for the New Yorker or for New York Magazine. So like she knows what she's doing anyway when it comes to words. And if I recall correctly from the 33 and a third book, Matt will kind of go to her as an editor for lyrics. And it got to the point where she was like, instead of just saying yes or no, she was like, well, why don't you do this instead? Or why don't you just try that? And that's kind of how she began getting credited on the songs in this album. Yeah, I just love the picture that the story paints. I love almost all the lyrics on it, like sleep in our clothes and wait for winter to leave. Um, just really, really pretty imagery that from here on out, the writing is on like an evolved level, I think, compared to the albums before it.
And quick note of the instrumentals, like I like to do this when I like hear a song for the first time. Like I'll try to draw a line to like another song I know. I feel like I got "I'll Melt with You" vibes on this one a little bit. Like I like that '80s sound of that song a little bit, like at least in the beginning, and kind of like the undertone of it. Or was that just me?
No, I do kind of hear that. And funny enough, I heard that song today. So it's already it's easy to put it
It's fresh
together.
in the
It has
mind.
that kind of melody to the vocals at times. I love
I
the
would say
fuzzy
it has
bass too. Great fuzzy
yeah, yeah,
bass.
yeah. I agree with all the above. I love the bass, and I would say, yeah, it has a similar vocal melody to that. And I think what band sings "I'll Stop the World and Melt with You"? Is that like Human League or one of those 80s bands and I'm forgetting.
They were one
But
hit wonder, I think.
It
Right?
was like lemon something. Did you just say that?
A modern English.
Modern
Oh,
English.
what
There we
what
go.
am I thinking of?
I
I
also
don't even
think
know.
the guy
Lemon
from
something.
Modern English has kind of a deeper voice, which is probably what the immediate draw in or Brett, probably why you thought of them was the vocal delivery is similar.
Little Robert Smithy at times too.
Yes.
Yeah, I know you mentioned that.
That's the first.
Mm.
Okay.
I think it's just like that baritone voice probably, but
Yeah.
Back to the map. Now should we do one more off a box or
I would love to not like a song, but I really have been genuinely liking everything we've listened to.
you know, I think we should go ahead and move on to High Violet just because I would feel so bad if the next if like I don't want to do Slow Show because Slow Show's got to come before Apartment Story like it does on the album. Um, but I would just say other highlights for me. I mean, the whole album of Boxer is a highlight, but other songs that I really love. Mistaken for Strangers is probably my favorite drumming song of theirs.
That's a
Um,
great song.
and fun fact, the as I said before, the band is two pairs of brothers and then Matt Berninger. They right after Boxer, in between Boxer and right before High Violet, they released a documentary called Mistaken for Strangers that was directed by Matt Berninger's brother. So it continues to be a family affair where Matt Berninger's brother then now also joins the National Lore as the director for it's like a live concert film, but I would say it's more of like a documentary about their interesting relationship as brothers and what it's like to have a brother who's like becoming a rock star from the director's perspective. Highly recommend it for people who really love the National.
I think Oasis needs to take notes from this band. If this many brothers can get along.
Yeah. Seriously though.
Can't be that hard.
And wait, that's the amount of money I would spend to get on a plane and go see Oasis if they got back together for like a one-off show of England is embarrassing. I would spend so much money to go see Oasis live. I love them.
There was a headline the other day. I think it was Liam was just like, if he wants to call me, I'll do it. But
Yeah,
I
that's
think it's just
Noel's never
nonsense.
picking up that phone.
No,
I'm Team Liam, even though Noel undoubtedly is the more talented one.
I tried to find out like where it all started, and it seems like they're both just kind of assholes to each other. But
Yeah. That pretty much
Liam
sums it
seemed
up.
to deliberately push buttons a little more, from what just the stories I read. But
If
it
you
was
want to have me back
definitely
on,
entertaining.
I could do a long episode about the brother fighting in Oasis.
That would be fun. But yeah, we'll table that for.
That'd be another good roadmap too, because I only know like two of their albums.
That's you don't need to know
Big
much.
two. Yeah.
No,
But
it could
people
just
like
we could
swear
just
by the
do
third one.
a gossip episode where we just talk about the infighting. We don't even have to talk about music.
Just a roadmap to the relationship.
A therapy episode for them.
You should do a series on music beefs, headlined by Liam.
Oh, it's a good one.
You could.
Get Steve Hyden.
I'll take the royalty checks in the mail for that idea for you guys.
Yeah,
As long as Steve Hyden doesn't sue us
what's
for
his
his
called?
rivalry book.
Yeah, Rivalry. I forgot. I haven't listened to that podcast in a while, but that's a great podcast.
Oh yeah, shout out Stephen Hyde. He's a great writer. He semi-recently ranked every single national song, which I would never be able to do.
Wow.
So
I look
yeah,
up that
for fans
one.
of the National, go to either his Twitter feed, Stephen Hyden's Twitter feed, or I think he writes for Uprocks.
You can Google it.
Yeah, or you could just Google it for shit.
Thank you, Brett.
Him in the
Google it.
SEOs there.
All
But
right, so
yeah,
the next
I
album,
would
High
say,
Violet.
yeah, just one more thing on Boxer. Other
Yeah.
highlights, because I could really talk about this forever. Green Gloves is a great song, and I believe Green Gloves is Matt Berninger's Instagram handle, so clearly he likes the song a lot too. Guest Room, Ada, and another great book ending where Gospel ends the album on a similar note to how Fake Empire opens it, where it's kind of a more orchestral, quieter song for most of it. But let's hit the gas pedal, so to speak. move on to High Violet, which at this point now the pressure's on them
Yeah.
because they're the drama, not the drama, but after the hardship of being a more mellow, straight up indie rock band compared to the other bands in their scene, like the National never had the partying attached to them the way that band like structured like a party band, you know, like you can tell by looking at them, like everyone in the Strokes did
You just
drugs,
know.
all that stuff. Yeah, which is really what Meet Me in the Bathroom is about, which the National appears in occasionally in that book, but it's mostly about the follies of bands like Interpol and the Strokes. But moving on to High Violet, they take a 3-year break, which at that point I believe is the longest break they've taken between albums. And yeah, it's the first time they have pressure on them. So that they have the weight of Boxer behind them, which I would say in those 3 years, Boxer really, really blows up. Like it's probably when 2010 happens, which is when High Violet's released. Boxer is probably on like decade end lists before High Violet comes out. So they haven't even made another album yet. And that's how big Boxer is. So they go into it with a lot of pressure. Once again, we're going to start the roadmap with the opening song, which is another very, very, very prominent song of theirs called Terrible Love. Um, I would say High Violet begins the era of like a more polished sounding, not like overproduced, because I don't think this band's ever overproduced. It's one of the reasons I think they're a great band, because they kind of stay true to themselves in the studio and purposely have a lot of say in what's happening in the studio. Just because of where they came from, of those first two albums not really doing anything for them, and they don't want to go back there. But let's start with Terrible Love, which right I would say if you want to focus on something, the opening chords and the effects that are going on in the guitar, awesome, just like stunningly awesome stuff that you're not really used to hearing from them at this point. You don't hear that kind of echoing on guitars on the earlier stuff, and you hear it right off the bat with High Violet. You hear that they've evolved in the opening track.
All right, let's listen to Terrible Love. Okay, we just listened to Terrible Love. Takes an ocean not to break. It's
Great
good.
line.
What did you guys think of this one?
I think it sounds like, because I had it on like during work today, and it's like a whole nother experience putting it on with headphones. Like you catch like little things that you won't hear on speakers. I don't know if that's like, I know that's like with like every band, but like it's really noticeable here, like with the little effects, the subtleness of a lot of the instruments. Like it was just like a really just a pretty song. I mean, I know that's like oversimplifying it, but
Oh, you're spot on. It is like it feels like they're making compositions, like not just like playing songs. Like
Mhm.
they are really building stuff with their music, and it's great. And Nick, you mentioned when it was paused how like the music then cuts out for that it takes an ocean not to break, and they let him kind of take the forefront, and it's just a lot of like great little decisions, like Brett was saying. And like right before, I guess it's the chorus. Um, it's kind of just like that fuzzy bass that we heard in the last song, and it just kind of like builds and builds subtly, and then it kicks in, and then it cuts out. Like they're doing a lot, and it's all like simple in a way to sound very complex. I don't know if I'm just talking on
It
my
goes
ass right
back
now, but
to what I hinted at earlier of them like making people wait for yeah, like I don't even know what the chorus really is in this one. There's
yeah.
like a couple of options. I would say it's like it's a terrible love and I'm walking with spiders is the chorus towards the end. But yeah, that's a real breathtaking moment when it kind of all peels back and Matt Berninger is repeating it takes an ocean not to break, and then it picks up even more so again. Um, just another example of a really great decision to put this where it is on the album, which is this is the first song you hear. Um, I feel like this is I view this album High Violet as kind of a rebirth for them. It was like were here to stay now after the first time success of Boxer. This one's kind of even more acclaimed than Boxer. As far as what is aged better, they've both aged really well. But I would say if you're looking at like if Rolling Stone or like one of those magazines did like the best indie rock albums of this century, like you might see High Violet and an album later on this list above Boxer. And I feel like it's because with High Violet they really do. It's almost the first time that they're comfortable in their sound and they're cool experimenting with themselves, which is why they just sound bigger here.
It's so poetic too. I'm staring at these lyrics. Like, fooler won't follow you. Like, first of all, fooler. Like, what's that? Like, I don't know. Could have said like I'm a fool or you're like fooler is just like a weird choice. We won't follow you into the
Is that a
rabbit hole.
name?
Is it a name? I'm very intrigued by this word
Could it
fooler.
be like a last name? I don't know.
Uh,
I think it's just
I feel like it's
someone
like you'd be a
someone who
fool
fools. I
to
feel like it's a made up
yeah.
word.
Yeah, like you're a trickster, you're a fooler. I won't follow you into the rabbit hole. I said I would, but then I saw your shivered bones. They didn't want me to. It's a terrible love, and I'm walking with spiders. Like it's just vague enough that you can like really just like probably think about those four lines for like an hour if you wanted to try and figure out what they're saying.
Yeah, I feel like
Um,
Boxer begins like a difference in their writing, which is why I think they with every album after Alligator, the writing is different. It just it's on another level, and it's why every album after Alligator is more acclaimed than Alligator and the ones before it. And I think this opener is a good example of that for all the reasons you guys just said.
and this one says it was just written by Aaron and Matt. There's a lot of the other songs that I've looked at credits say it's the whole band. I mean, I'm sure the whole band was involved, but I never know how seriously to take the Spotify show credits.
I would hope it's
That
accurate.
makes sense because Matt is the only one of the pairs of brothers, and then like him and his wife do most of the writing. And Aaron is the one who's like a super producer now, who's buddy with
True.
Taylor
T
Swift.
Swift.
Yeah, yeah. So that sounds accurate to me.
Also, this album cover is really cool. Like, are these all words that are like scribbled there? I don't know if you're looking at it too. It looks like almost like a vase of flowers, but I feel like it's a bunch of different words in script. I
Yeah, it
would
is. It is.
love
It's
to
a
Google if someone like figured out a bunch of those words.
yeah, it's that's a good segue actually because it does look like a vase of flowers. And I think the next song we should listen to, man, it's so hard to pick on these middle albums that I love so much. I think we should listen to Conversation 16 next. Which keeps in because you guys, I'm picking this one because you guys liked Terrible Love so much. It has a similar but not like same sounding. It has a similar guitar part to open the song up. It has ridiculous lyrics similarly, some of which are about flowers, but like you just said, the album cover looks like. So yeah, that was a good segue. Let's do Conversation 16 from High Violet next.
All right, here we go. All right, that was conversation 16. I was afraid I'd eat your brains because I'm evil. Drums, man, drums.
Drums pick up. You have that similar opening far away but close up sounding like almost like a tremolo effect on the opening chords here. Overall, so I could direct the map. What did you guys think of this one?
I know we kind of talked like when we went off air for a second, but again, just knowing the drums, like that was like a big sticking point for you with the band, and like I didn't really get to dial in on that like on my first run through your roadmap, and now it's like front and center, and it's so cool like just listening to what he's doing because like it is like it's not meant like it's easy to well not easy, but like you can get tied into drummers like I don't know like John Bonham or like Dave Grohl and just hear them go nuts back there, and he's doing that, but in like a subtle, gentle way that's like just as cool as what they do, if that makes any sense at all. But I don't know. I'm just like I'm as we talk through this, I'm like starting to like them more and more.
Yeah.
Final, it's working.
Yeah, they had like that cool like dance sort of drums that I was talking about earlier to you. And I love the background like chorus vocals going on in the verses, just the like opera style overlay was really cool. And then it kind of like fades out for a sec and the drums do like almost this drum roll thing back into the song. It happened at least twice that I noticed, but it's like exactly what Brett said, where like he's coming in with a fill, but he's not like smashing away. It's not overpowering. It's just like a gentle like and then it like comes in.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
think
don't know. Less is more. Like it's just it's really good.
this is one of my favorite examples. I'll call it out on a later song in a few albums, but the waiting to give the listener the chorus here, like I would say the chorus is the "'Cause I'm evil" part, which doesn't you don't hear until more than halfway through the song. So like you have the build up, and then it's a "Lead the Silver City to all the silver girls." Everything means everything. And then he goes back to the verse, and they do that a few times before you get him kind of going back to the alligator days because he's like kind of groaning because I'm evil. Um, which is just so late in the song to finally unleash like what the actual chorus is. And then they go back to it later. It goes back to this, the compositions are different at this point in on High Violet. It's like overall really super polished album.
Yeah. To speak to the roadmap, like no Brett was saying like he's like coming around right now, as am I. And like it's like the songs we started with, like with the yelling and the guitars, like I already know I like that. So to hear
Yeah.
this other stuff that they're doing and enjoy it, I think is even better and speaks more to the quality of this band than just the songs and the style of something that I don't really need to be sold on. The fact that I like this song and the last one we listened to and the gentle pianos and just all these different styles they work in, like they keep it interesting, like with every song, which just makes them a good band automatically, whether you're into them musically or not. Like they got the skills.
Yeah, I feel like they're and on this album more so than others, but between like you were saying, like the added like chorus effect of like other people singing, that's kind of a first. I would say before High Violet, like the only voice you're ever hearing is Matt Berninger's. And if you're hearing a melody, it's Studio Magic where it's him singing over him, like a double track of vocals, or him harmonizing with himself in the studio. Because not anybody else, nobody else really sings in this band live besides him. But this is the first you get of in Conversation 16, you hear like the background voices in the background choir. It's a thing that it doesn't become a trend, but you hear it again a couple of albums from now. It becomes like a kind of staple of theirs, honestly.
So I'm on like the Wikipedia page for this album, and like apparently a music critic like put into words that I was trying to say before. It's beautifully subtle, is like what this album is pretty
I
much.
would say that's a great description of
I think you did say that, Brett.
most of their
You are the
stuff.
Or
music
did
critic
I?
who gave, yeah. Yeah, definitely subtle without sounding plain.
Yeah,
A masterclass in subtle emotional shading.
Ooh, shading.
props
That's
to that writing.
nice.
Yeah.
The side of the pencil.
I just feel like this album begins the point for me in listening to their discography where it's like it sounds so sophisticated, the music, but they're still just like an indie rock band now. Does that make sense?
No, it does.
Like it sounds like there's like 30 people playing on this album where it's really for the most part just these five guys.
They're the subtle Slipknot.
That would be pretty cool if the National wore the mask when they performed live like Slipknot, I think.
Uh, did we lose you?
There's like dressed up as zombies talking about eating brains.
It adds up.
Yeah, they have some artwork around they have some like Halloween themed artwork at this point around Conversation 16 and that lyric especially. Um,
So where do we go from here? It looks like they have a
oh man,
a
do we want
3-year
to
break.
do we want to leave High Violet? Yeah, let's leave High Violet, which if you're liking this at this point, listeners and both of you, I would say other highlights here. Blood Buzz Ohio is by far the most played song on this album. So I'm getting real nerdy here. I'm going deep cuts instead of the singles at this point. Blood Buzz Ohio is one of their most popular songs. I recommend if you like this what you've heard so far to listen to it. I would also point out England and also the closer Vanderlyle Crybaby Geeks is just a for the third straight album, them knowing how to open and close an album. Vanderlyle Crybaby Geeks is what they closed most shows with at this point. It's a really cool live thing at the end of their shows. If they're closing with Vanderlyle, which by the way is a made up word, Matt Berninger has gone on record saying he wanted to make a word up, so he made that word up for specifically for Vanderlyle Crybaby Geeks. And when they play it live, when they close shows with it, they'll encore, then they'll come out and they'll unplug their instruments. So it'll be the Desner brothers on acoustics and Matt Berninger just singing really loud without a microphone at the crowd. And it's kind of this
Whoa.
giant sing along that I highly recommend. Everyone look up on YouTube. I would
Well,
say
that's pretty cool.
What
if
kind
you
of
search-
venues do they play? Like if he's unplugging his mic? Like is it club venues?
at this point around High Violet, probably still. Present day, they're playing Madison Square Garden later this summer.
Damn.
With Patti Smith, which is insane. But I recently saw them in the beginning of the winter at the Capitol Theater in Port Chester. They played, which is like a small venue for them. That's like a small club. And they did the unplugging thing. And yeah, it was
Nice.
like a hair on the back of your neck standing up kind of moment. But I've seen them do it at bigger venues too. I'm fairly positive the first time I ever saw the National was actually in the neighborhood I live in right now in Forest Hills, Queens. They played it at the tennis stadium at Forest Hills Stadium. I would say that it fits between like 10 to 20,000 people. And yeah, they unplugged and just if you
That's
were close,
awesome.
you were able to hear it. But yeah, but the whole crowd is going on with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
That's-
I don't want us to listen to it because it's a super quiet song and I don't want you to get distracted by how different it is from the road we're on right now with the other songs I've picked. But apologies for Vanderlyle Crybaby Geeks for me going on like a 5-minute tangent and then not listening to it. But I would say yeah, England, Vanderlyle, and Blood Buzz are the other highlights for me from this album. Blood Buzz is like Fake Empire. Blood Buzz might be a song that you know offhand and you just don't know it's a Nationals.
Has he ever broken out a megaphone like Scott Weiland for Vanderlyle?
Not in my experience. No, that was oh man, rest in peace, Scott Weiland. That was one of my favorite things about it, about like watching old videos of them performing live is when he does that for like Dead and Bloated. Oh man. But we can't talk about STP right now because this will be like a 5-hour episode if I get my summed up a pilot obsession.
That would be another good roadmap to add to the list.
Let's keep it growing. Is it
So,
time to get into trouble?
yeah, let's
Nailed it.
jump ahead to
It'll find you.
so they take a they take a 3-year break here between High Violet and Trouble Will Find Me. So just kind of to recap, Boxer is the one that is like, okay, this band is here to stay. They followed up with High Violet, which is them kind of experimenting into being a more polished indie rock band. But also High Violet, the reviews for High Violet are like, oh man, this band is becoming like one of America's best indie rock bands. and then they take a 3-year break, and Trouble Will Find Me, I would say, solidifies them in 2013 as like on the Mount Rushmore of American indie rock bands of this generation, so to speak. That is how highly regarded Trouble Will Find Me is. It's a lot of national fans that like them a ton, like I do, would say this is their best album. I'm pretty sure it's the first time they're nominated for a Grammy is for Trouble Will Find Me. You could hear the continued growth of his songwriting, and also the experiment and jump in sophistication you hear from Boxer to High Violet is like threefold with Trouble Will Find Me as far as how it's produced and the song structures. So let's jump right into it. And okay, this is not the opener. I was gonna say I thought it was the opener, but it's not. We're gonna start with let's start with Don't Swallow the Cap.
All right, let's do it. I'll swallow the cap.
Don't swallow the cat.
All right, fine. If only there was a song that could have warned me. Could have choked. All right. That was
Thoughts? I hope that's a good
Hmm.
I was hanging on the lyrics with this one, like more so than the earlier track. I feel like, well, as we've gone on and explored the lyrics more, like I feel like now I'm digging in and I want to see what he's saying. And like, there's so many cool things going on in this one.
Yeah, this
Like, I
feels
know,
very lyric based. Sorry,
yeah,
Brett.
kind
It's
of
okay.
wordy. It's kind of more wordy and lyric heavy than a lot of their other songs, I'd say.
Yeah, I think this one kind of lost me a little just because I felt like it was like, I'm sorry, Nick, because I know you like this band. It
Breaking
sounded
my
like
heart here.
it felt like the same thing was just going on for the entire song.
Musically, I won't agree with you, but I understand why you could it kind of gets stagnant musically. Especially for a band that musically is so kind of all over the place in a single song like they are. I agree with what Brett said that this is more of a lyric one for me. You once again they're holding off to unleash the chorus until like 3 minutes into this, which is when you hear him saying in the background, "Don't swallow the cap, pat yourself on the back." What was your guys' take on the play "Let It Be" or "Never Mind" at the end of the chorus? Because my take has always been just based off of like how they sound and how they are as a band. I wouldn't be surprised if the "Let It Be" is more of a Replacements reference than a Beatles reference.
I could see that.
My
It would go well
mind
with
went
it would
to
go well with the choice between that and Nirvana,
Yeah,
because Beatles and Nirvana are pretty polar opposites. So
yeah,
maybe not
but
polar opposites,
so
but definitely opposites.
I don't know the replacement song very well, but the play Let It
Great
album,
album, great album.
great album. All right, I'll listen to it. But play Let It Be followed by Pat Yourself on the Back. The Pat Yourself on the Back leads me to think it's a Beatles reference because that's a song that's very like, oh, like we don't need like possessions and all this stuff. Like just get along and love each other. Like pat yourself on the back for being such a good person and listening to Let It Be.
For speaking words of wisdom.
Yeah.
I mean, he also precedes it by saying, "If you want to see me cry, play Let It Be." I
Oh,
could
true.
the Beatles one being a little bit more emotional, but then the "pat yourself on the back" I could see being like, "Oh, you know who the Replacements are? Like, you're
True.
cool, pat yourself on the
So
back." So,
I'm
like, I
not
love the
cool.
double meaning behind that one. I'm usually not a fan of bands calling out other bands or other songs or other albums in their own songs.
Like heart songs.
That's you're calling me lying because I do love heart songs on the Red album on the album.
That was the first song I heard do it though, so it's allowed. As far as I'm concerned, that song invented referencing other songs. And we're back to talking Weezer with Nick Parco.
No, you gotta do the
Couldn't
double.
escape it.
There it is. There it is. He's putting the
Nick's
W
being a
up.
troublemaker right now.
So we're kind of at a fork in the road. I'm gonna keep going with the road metaphors.
Yes.
How Brett kind of liked this one, but was not as crazy about it. So
Not as crazy. No.
Let me just say another highlight of mine is this is a really great opener. They these days tend to open with this one. I don't know what they're gonna do because they have a new album coming out and then they're touring this summer. So I imagine it might be opening with a newer song. This is an awesome opener. And one of my favorite parts lyrically and to see them live and on this album in general is when they ask, what do I see? I say a bright, white, beautiful heaven hanging over me live. That's like really powerful. And Matt Berninger is like punching the mic while he does it. It's really, really
Nice.
awesome.
Lyrics to know if seeing them live. That comes up on every one of these is there's
Moments
certain
to
parts
know.
of songs that's like the fans know. It's a good one to know. I
Um,
like
Pat
the
yourself in the back for that one.
they used like thank you, Brett. Thank you. Dead serious. I did like this like for the piano, it felt like they were using like maybe a keyboard or some sort of synth that had like that Tony muddy feel. Or yeah, I don't know if muddy's exactly what I'm going for, but because usually all the piano has felt like it was just like a grand piano from what we've listened to at least. So that was cool.
I do want to mention this because I just confirmed it with 2 seconds of me Googling. So Don't Swallow the Cap is, I'm fairly positive, a reference to the playwright Tennessee Williams, whose cause of death was he choked on the bottle cap. And they what song is it? The National talks about Tennessee Williams on an earlier song on an earlier album. So clearly
Oh,
Tennessee Williams.
It's a callback.
Yeah, it is a callback. Trying to remember what song it is. I believe it's on Boxer. They mention Tennessee Williams and his death, but they don't get into how Tennessee Williams died. But now this one, they talk about Don't Swallow the Cap, but they don't actually call out Tennessee Williams.
interesting. He's there, Bukowski. That is to Modest Mouse.
Modest Mouse, yeah. Yeah, so I'm sorry, it was on Alligator. So a song we didn't listen to on Alligator called City Middle. The lyric is, I think I'm like Tennessee Williams, I wait for the click, I wait, but it doesn't kick in. So this is going back to a reference to Alligator, which is multiple albums ago at this point, and kind of in their rear view because they, like we went over, reinvented themselves with Boxer, not Alligator. So this is like a deep callback to a writing reference from Alligator.
Interesting.
What should we do next? So according to this playlist, we have 5 songs left. I don't think we're gonna listen to all of them, but I'm taking it personal that Nick didn't like that one, so we're gonna now stick with Trouble Will Find Me. And we're gonna head
I'm sorry.
we're gonna do Sea of Love next, which is also from Trouble Will Find Me.
Sea of Love. All right. So let's hit it. All right, that was Sea of Love. What did Harvard teach us? Parco's dragging us in. I like this one more than the last one.
All right, good. So
I agree with that.
Yeah.
We're back on for both of you.
It felt like more of a shapely song, where the last one just felt like a big rectangle. I don't know how else to explain it, but
so what has you back in because of this song? What about this song?
Instrumentally, it was different throughout, or like, hold on, I'm caught up at the end now, so I'm trying to remember how it started. I'm just giving a little play right here. It built well, which we know they can do, and I love their drummer does this a lot with that drum roll, pull it back, drum roll, pull it back. Like, is a really cool style that he really likes to dig into. I don't know. I just felt this song had had more going on. If I wanted
I
to
feel
just
like
put it
this
really
is like
simply.
this is one of their more alligatory later period national songs. Not that this could
I
be
can
on
see that.
Alligator, but it has that energy that they cut to me they kind of left behind with Boxer. Like to me has like the I know this isn't on the roadmap, but Nick, you mentioned that you listened to it. This kind of has energy like Abel on Alligator.
Yeah,
Uh,
does feel like does remind me of those songs. I can
it's why I
definitely see
picked
that
it in.
comparison.
It's definitely why it's one of my favorites from Trouble Will Find Me, is that it's one of these rockers that I feel like fans of the older stuff will appreciate.
And also something I just remembered that I'd said when we were recording was they build up in the song and then they just kind of almost cut out the instrumentals or drop them completely. And there was that really cool key change that just like expected the guitars to like stay on one way and then it kind of like dropped lower. Just things like that that kind of like make you double take. I always
Yeah,
love in
yeah, for
music.
sure. I'm also a sucker for when bands don't have a title track on the album, but the name of the album is said in a song.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the when it gets quieter, the if I stay here, trouble will find me.
Brett smirking.
Some movement behind Parco.
Uh
And would
But
it
yeah,
be,
my favorite part was the "If I Stay Here" part two, because I feel like it kind of reminded me of like Trailer Trash a little bit. Like when it slows down, it's like "Sorry if I dissed you,"
yeah,
or I
yeah,
forgot like the line. Like
another
it's kind of like
Loudermilk
that part,
comparison. Yeah,
like how they both pause in both parts of those songs, and then like the song kicks in from there. Drawing that line back to Modest Mouse, like we said.
yeah, I agree that they're similar bands. Brett, I've wanted to make this joke. When he starts yelling about Harvard, did you think about Ryan Fitzpatrick?
I did, yeah.
I know you too well, man.
I mean,
I
they
can
never
just
mentioned that.
imagine you
Him
like,
throwing picks every week,
yeah,
yeah.
and you being like, "What did Harvard teach you, Ryan Fitzpatrick?"
Drag the Jets down.
Because the announcers never bring that up enough that he went to Harvard.
No, no. Or
What
if
else
they
is
play,
there to say
it's
about it?
that. If a
You just
player
want them to
goes to
talk about his
Harvard
play on the field.
or
The beard.
plays lacrosse, those are the two things that announcers love to sit on. They played a different sport or went to Harvard. That's all that gets brought up.
One more note about this song is this is another, if you're gonna see them live, you should know this song pretty well. Because when they play it, I wouldn't say they play that this is like a live staple or they play it every night. But when they do, like the yelling is more intense live in the outro than it is on the record. So
Nice.
it's a cool experience to see live. Um, so now the question is, do we stay with Trouble Will Find Me? You know what? For the sake of time, because I know we've been going on for a long time at this point, let's skip ahead to Sleep All Beast because I'm very curious of Brett's thoughts on
I'm
Sleep All
excited to
Beast.
talk
I know
about
he
this.
told me he liked it. Just before we leave, Trouble Will Find Me. Um, the most popular song on this one, by a long shot, according to Spotify, is "I Need My Girl," which is a quieter one and probably another one that you may have heard in the wild in a grocery store or something because it's that popular of a song. Um, Graceless is a song they played SNL around this album. Um, and they played Graceless, and it's one of their better TV performances that you could find on YouTube. And to call out one more, I would say Pink Rabbits is a deep cut that is like a beloved fan favorite. Not a single, I don't think, not that popular among non-national fans, but like national nerds would point to Pink Rabbits as like a top 5 national song. I don't. I think it's a great song. It's not like on my Mount Rushmore of national songs, but I'd be remiss to not mention Pink Rabbits because that's a real beloved one for the diehards on this album.
It's their pink triangle.
Uh, different subject matter for sure. And the national never gets nearly as cringy as Pinkerton does. But with all that said, I would say Trouble Will Find Me really, really solidified them as like this is one of the best indie rock bands in America, and they're like very much here to stay. Which is at this point 2 albums after years after Boxer, but 2 full lengths after Boxer. So let's move on to 2017's Sleep Well Beast. So that's a 4-year gap between Trouble Will Find Me and Sleep Well Beast, which
Do they tour in these gaps, or is it like maybe a year tour and then a little break? Like, are they disappearing during these gaps, or they still have a presence out there?
so I can't really speak for because like I said, I got into them around Trouble Will Find Me. I mean, I
Oh, sure.
Boxers pulled me in, but I got into them around Trouble Will Find Me, which they toured around Trouble Will Find Me, and then they took time off before Sleep Well Beast. And since Sleep Well Beast, it's been they tour around albums, and then once the album cycle's over,
Yeah.
they just kind of take a break for a
Well, it
while.
sounds like they do other stuff too, so it's not like
Yeah, I mean, he's
yeah.
not the Desner brother is not producing Taylor Swift at this point, but he's Big Red Machine is a band that he started and still has with Justin Vernon from Bon Iver, which is probably a few years away at this point. But let's jump at the Sleep Well Beast, which is 2017. Probably my favorite album cover of theirs, which is a photo of
Really cool.
where Taylor Swift would later record Folklore and Evermore. That's
Fun
their
fact.
Oh, really?
Aaron Desner's Long Pond studio in upstate New York or the Hudson Valley. I don't want to offend people who are true upstaters who would say the Hudson Valley is actually upstate New York, but somewhere in the Hudson Valley, north of Westchester. You could see the band through the recording studio window on this tiny little house silhouette. I think the album cover gives you a hint at what the album's going to sound like, which is it's kind of a turn towards darkness more so than their other ones are, I think.
I say it
They're
looks kind of
also
bleak.
yeah, which is always a theme in their lyrics since day one. But I think sonically in this one, it's almost like a rebirth again. Where when I talked about Boxer, I said that was them solidifying their sound for that era. And I feel like that sound goes through Trouble Will Find Me. And I'm not going to say they reinvent themselves because once again, they're not Radiohead. But with Sleep Well Beast, they're kind of you get the introduction of drum machines and you get more synthesizers, and you also kind of get the Desner brothers like turning the amps up and starting to solo and create more riff heavy stuff. So with that being said, let's start with the System Only Dreams in Darkness off of
All right.
Sleep Well Beast.
All right, let's listen to it. All right. They found the distortion setting on their amp.
Guitars
I
let
mean,
loose a little bit there.
yeah. No doubt we're gonna like that. I love when a solo starts with the main riff and then he just builds from there. Kind of like tricks you a little bit. You don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Guitar driven song. There was a solo. Always gonna like that.
Yeah, it's about time that they let the Desner brothers let themselves kind of show off a little bit because they're really good guitar players, and this is the album where I think it's most obvious that they really, really, really know how to play guitar.
Like
But
it snuck up on you too, because like you think they're just doing
Yeah.
like the main riff there, and then it just starts to soar from there.
yeah,
Yes.
and even earlier when in the beginning of the verse, like the guitar is in front, but it's still a national song, so you still have that little piano melody behind the guitar,
Yeah, it's just like a
kind of
quick
in the background.
riff
Yeah,
popping in and out. And then it does get to
it's holding down the
expand from
fort.
there. Yeah.
This is another great one live. For the yelling of I can't explain it.
Oh, that's what you mentioned live. Like, I think you said when this album came out, you weren't like super psyched right away. But I think
No, and part of
if you
that,
were to look at their catalog and then craft live sets, it sounds like having songs like this to pull from will be like really good for them.
This is like so System Only Dreams and Total Darkness is probably one of two or three they pull from this album on any given night. And I think when I first heard this, I was so excited when it came out because I jumped on board in like 2013 after Trouble Will Find Me came out. So this was like my first experience. I was like, they're my favorite band. I can't wait for this new release. And I wasn't crazy about it when I first heard it. This is more than anything else in their catalog. This has grown on me more than anything else. I just wasn't expecting this kind of album from them at this point. With I'm not going to say the lean on technology, but like you guys feel the vibes are different, right? It's not just me.
The drums aren't there like they were, at least on like this one.
Yeah, and it took me a while, but like I'm okay with the like the perfection of the earlier drum stuff if it's going to be replaced by them plugging the guitars in and turning the amps up.
It sounds like they
And the,
kept that keyboard too from Trouble Will Find Me. Like that
Mhm.
same kind of tone.
and the guitars are like a constant, like all throughout this album for the
No,
most
not
part.
necessarily. It's a national album, so there's still a lot of piano going on. But yeah, this is their most. This is a collection of songs that's more riff driven than any other release of theirs, I would say. I'm just looking at the track listing. I think for roadmap purposes and for time purposes, we're gonna leave Sleep Well Beast here, which Brett, I'm sorry, because I know you said you like this one a lot.
I did like that one. Yeah.
For calling out other ones, I put Day I Die on the playlist I sent you guys, right?
Yeah, I thought that one was another one that kind of like had like edge guitar vibes. I know, like going back to like my U2 mentioned before, but that's kind of what I picked up on, like the tone he was using there.
For sure. I would say other highlights on this album are Day I Die because it once again has a really good guitar solo, which is not something you're getting in every national song. Corinne at the Liquor Store, which Corinne is Matt Berninger's co-writer. That's his wife. That's a great song. Dark Side of the Gym is one of their prettier ballads and also one of their better music videos. And I also like the quieter opener, Nobody Else Will Be There, which is not as riff driven. So I don't know if I'd recommend you guys listen to it because I don't want to get you off the road again. But yeah, Sleep Well Beast has grown on me more than anything else I've ever heard of from them. It is now one of my favorites. I would say the final stop on this 2+ hour journey, wow, should be let's jump ahead to I Am Easy to Find, which is their release after Sleep Well Beast. It came in 2019.
I don't see that one. No, I'm just being dumb. Sorry, Nick. Had to get one more in.
For a second there, this is a really long album. This is even though it's an hour and 3 minutes, it's 16 different songs, which is a lot for them. I would say this is up until this point, including 2019. This is their most recent album, and this is probably the one I go back to least, besides the first two, besides the self-titled, which, like I said, doesn't really exist. And I listen to this more than Sad Songs for Dirty Lovers, but not by much. This is not one of my top ones. They're just experimenting a lot, which I'm not against bands experimenting, but it's just not the kind of experimentation that I appreciate. It's like we have different singers coming in now. There's like a rotation of other singers on this album, and as someone who loves Matt's voice, I'm not as crazy about it. But there's one song on here that is one of my favorite national songs. It's called Rylan. It's the third from last. And going back to my feelings on the album, this stands out to me because it was actually written for High Violet and didn't make the cut for High Violet because it didn't have words with it when they went into the studio and they were in a time crunch for High Violet. So they revisited this leftover song for High Violet, completed it, and threw it on here. And it's my favorite song on I Am Easy to Find, and it's called Rylan.
All right, let's listen.
All right,
All right, that was Rylan. Yeah, initial thoughts. You were right. There are other vocalists here. Wasn't expecting that. At first, she was singing with Matt, and then it was he was gone. The drums were doing that great drum thing that I like with the rolls and the stop.
Symbolless drumming pattern.
Yeah.
For
And
of them.
got a bunch of violin, which always makes me happy when I hear in these songs. So I was very excited for that.
Yeah, but did you think of that riff towards the end, like almost coming from back to front towards
Yeah.
the song? Love that.
Yeah.
Sounds
think-
like a riff that could be on the prior album, like a Sleepwell Beast-esque riff.
Yeah, it goes back to the subtlety we were talking about earlier. How it's just like it's not front and center, but it's very important to the song.
Brett, what did you think?
I think I'm pretty aligned with both of you on this one. I'd say for the most part. I think I did like it like less than Sleepwell B stuff. But there was enough going on here, and I like the return of the drums, like Nick said.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
a little bit few and far between on this album, and like I said, this is their most recent release from 2019. So they have a new album coming out later this month. But I'm very curious to see what direction they're heading in. For the roadmap purposes, we've reached the end here since
The lyrics
I
in this
like
are just before we get off Ryland. A
sure.
lot of interesting lyrics. Like I feel like you could spend a lot of time just trying to dissect these. But
Yeah, I mean I love
yeah,
the Underwater You're Almost Free is a great
yeah.
one.
Don't you want to be popular culture? Is it easy to keep quiet? Like, I don't know. I feel like I could think about this a bunch because he's saying a lot of things cryptically.
there's
All
There's
a
the
little
another
bit of hell
wordy
in
one
everyone.
too.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
All the little kids are high and hazy. Everybody's got nowhere to go. Eat your pearls on Sunday morning. What does that mean? Is it like you're so rich that you have jewelry, you don't have cereal? I don't know. Quick.
It's something about
That's the
California, I think,
quick
right?
interpretation after 2 hours of podcasting.
That comes after like a California line, so I'm guessing it's something to do with
Yeah,
maybe they're rich in California.
California's rotten. Dress light blue to be forgotten.
Yeah, just classic super depressing national lyrics. Um yeah, I would say that
Yeah.
this is not my favorite album of theirs, but I it's still a national album. Like it has very, very high highs for me. And yeah, like I was saying, I'm very interested to see what their next one's gonna sound like in a few weeks. I didn't want to include any of the new singles just because we don't have the whole picture. Like we don't know
Yeah,
what
that's fair.
vibe of the entire album is gonna be like. So
Totally cool with that. As Nick knows
overall,
my opinion on singles.
what do you guys think of the national now that we've reached the end here?
I
Will
think
you be listening offline, or are you gonna lie to me and say you liked it and then never listen to it again?
no, I'm gonna listen to Boxer and High Violet. Like if I might spend all of tomorrow listening to the Meteora tapes, but I'm definitely gonna listen to Boxer and High Violet within the next week.
Yeah, I got to explore High Violet more because I know like Alligator, I like Boxer, I know I like, but these later ones I really want to dive into. Like I do want to listen to the rest of Sleepwell Beast, High Violet, and then Trouble Will Find Me. So I'll probably just work my way up from High Violet, honestly.
It's a
I'm
solid
glad
plan.
this landed with you guys. I hope that the next time we speak, you're both like, oh my god, I love the national now because of the roadmap episode that we had you on for.
Now we got to go see them.
I mean, if I had to
If you
predict
got
it for
money, they're not
myself,
that cheap of a band to see anymore. That's the very few complaints I have about the national. Like
tale as old as time.
yeah,
No one's
they're
cheap
playing,
anymore.
These
now
bands
they're playing
price you
Madison
out.
Square Garden, so it's gonna
I'll
cost a pretty.
forget it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm waiting. I'm gonna do the old wait till like a day before the show and check StubHub for that.
Yeah, that's a good plan, especially because you live close enough. I mean, I kind of live I could do that same thing, but it's definitely easier for you. I'm excited to listen to Boxer though. I think of all the ones we've listened to, for some reason, like that one seemed to stick out to
Yeah,
me.
it's the most, for lack of a better word, like it's just a special album. It just is like it's like a moment in time that going back to that mid to early 2000s, like the end of the beginning of the 2010s, like that that album really encapsulates that time period well for me. And I've read reviews around when it came out too, and also like retrospectives about it. And yeah, Boxer I would say is their prettiest and their most special release to date. So it's my favorite. I find it interesting that that's the one you want to go back to, because I know you said you like the louder stuff and the more guitar driven stuff, and I would say Boxer is one of the more piano driven ones. But definitely report back and let me know how both of your respective national journeys are going.
Definitely.
I'm glad we have like a light couple of release weeks coming up, and then we have new national at the end of the month.
Yeah, it's
So
great
it can kind
timing.
of just stay in the tub with them pretty much.
Absolutely. It'll be easy to find and we'll sleep well. Hopefully there's no alligators in the tub. All right, I'm done. Nick, thank you so much as always. These are always
Of course.
so fun. Um, this was great. You did a great job. I was very skeptical going in, and now I'm literally looking forward to listening to this album and more of their music. So I think you did a great job. Whether people are like us or people are already fans, I think it was a really fun drive down the road with you, respecting all the signs and whatnot. Yeah, thanks.
I want to
Thank
echo
you.
that too.
Yeah,
Just because like I feel like if we didn't have this conversation, like there's a good chance I might have like listened to a couple of these albums and then maybe not come back to them after like one listen. But like talking to you about it and kind of learning like kind of what's underneath the surface with a lot of these, and especially like lyrically and with the drums and everything, like I'm like real like Nick said, I'm excited to go back and listen to this now, like with more context. And I feel like it hits more when you have context with some bands.
For sure.
yeah,
And they're a band, if you talk to people who really love them, like yeah, they grow on people. I know one of my good friends wasn't as crazy about Sleep Old Beast when it came out. Now it's their favorite album. Um, I don't know if I see that happening with me with I'm Easy to Find, but it's tough. Like I stand by Boxer being their best release and the most special and my favorite album of theirs. But man, that second place slot changes on like a monthly basis. Like I've been listening to this band for a long time now, and I hear new and different angles of things every time I put on a record of theirs. So
Sound
thanks
of a
for
good
having me
band
on.
there.
that's great.
Thanks for having me
Well,
on, and I look forward to whatever assignment you're going to throw at me next. Hopefully, one like this and not one like the prior Weezer project.
We
we
can all do
can't
Craig
wait.
Finn impersonations next time.
Uh, all right, Nick. Thank you. Sleep well, Beast. We love you.